Majora's Mask, Chapter 60, The Composer and the Soldier. For a time, the Stall children savagely tore at the iron bars separating them from their prey. Link sat in the grass and watched as they gave up one by one. The hero wondered what instinct took over the skeletons when killing was no longer an option. He was amused to watch them aimlessly roam the graveyard or circle tombstones. Eventually, they all put their claws away and let the boy, horse, and fairy be. A few Stall children did find another task to occupy them, burying the newly dead. The two battered corpses of the Gorman brothers were tossed into Dampé's open grave, joining the old man in a pile. The same skeletons took the shovels and began burying them. "I wonder if they're turning them into monsters," the boy wondered. Twilight had given way to night, as Link, Tatl, and Epona watched safely from behind the chained gate.
"I wonder why they can't pop up on this side,"
Tatl said. Her bright orb was the only nearby source of light. "I don't know," Link said, stroking Epona's neck absently as she rested beside him. His horse appreciated it. Despite her nasty fall, she only had scrapes on her back legs. Jumping the fence and returning the way they came was not an option, at least as long as the Stall children were around. Link knew there was more to explore behind them, a stone archway and a mysterious fire. Both rested atop a small hill that partially obscured the new landmarks, but for now, Link took the chance to catch his breath.
"You know, at least this place is upfront about stuff,"
Tatl said. Clearly, she was not capable of a silent rest. Link kept his eyes closed as he begrudgingly replied, "What do you mean?"
"In Woodfall, Snowhead, and Great Bay, we were deceived. There were pretty trees or oceans and mountains, but nasty stuff happened anyways. Here, nope. Brown and undead right from the start. Deal with it."
Link smiled and left it at that. Yet again, however, Tatl was not content to silence.
"Link, you should come look at this."
The boy sighed. "She's right," he thought. "No time for resting." Even if Tatl didn't understand sore arms and legs from running and fighting, Link stood and petted Epona, asking her to stay put. He walked a short distance up the hill to see what awaited them. "Wow," he said. "I guess that's why the skeletons won't come here."
"You think?"
Tatl said, her wings lowering in dismay. The stone archway was a broken bridge. Once upon a time, it must have connected the cliff on the right to a building's rooftop on the left. On the rooftop, a mysterious fire burned brilliantly against the early night. Link and Tatl stood on a path that led beneath the broken archway. From the ground, there was no visible way to scale the cliff or make it on top of the building. Most notably, the passageway leading under the bridge was blocked. Link and Tatl stared at it from a distance, already wary of Stall children given their previous encounter. "But this one is no child." The skeleton beneath the bridge was massive, sprawled across the dirt road. It was identical to the others in every way except its size. Link could likely fit his whole body in just the empty eye socket alone. Those empty pits were void of light or undead magic. The motionless creature wore a small hat in the shape of an upside-down skeleton, which was precariously positioned atop its round skull. Even though it did not appear alive at all, Link knew better. He stepped forward cautiously, looking up at the rooftop again on the archway's left side. The strange flames did indeed form a ring. There was a wooden door on the ground level, and Link turned the knob to find it locked. He found writing engraved just beside it on the stone.
"Ye who awaken me, battle me.
Read Tatl.
Then shall I extinguish the furious flame."
The fire kept dancing above them, hiding some dark shape within its mystical prison.
"We're supposed to wake that thing up?"
The fairy eyed the giant, lifeless skeleton skeptically. "Maybe the royal family's treasure is hidden up there," Link said.
"Then why would Dampé ask us to dig through all those graves? Surely not to awaken an undead army that would kill him."
The boy shrugged. "This whole royal family stuff doesn't make sense to me anyways. Every time I hear that, I think of Hyrule." He paused, trying to piece together Ikana Canyon's history. "You said we're headed towards an ancient castle, right?"
Right.
Is that where the royal family of Ikana is, or used to be? Tattle didn't respond. Why exactly is there a royal family here? Was Termina ruled by them at one point before power went to Clocktown and the mayor? Has this place always been a land of the undead, or is this just something the Skull Kid did? Or do you remember? Tattle scoffed.
How can I forget? My poor feeble shadow brain just can't seem to get a handle on history. How disappointing.
Link shook his head. Come on, Tattle. I didn't mean to offend you. I'm just trying to figure this out. She sighed again.
You're right, I guess. Because I don't know. I'm sure this place has a rich and interesting story, but you'll have to find someone like you to answer those questions.
Someone like me? Link said. You mean from outside of Termina? Here?
I don't know, but if I had to place bets on which region was most likely to have someone like that, I would say this one.
It's all just really confusing, Link said, trailing off.
It doesn't make much sense to me either.
Tattle wrinkled her brow when another thought occurred to her.
You said Majora's Mask could raise the dead, right? And that it was the only thing that could?
Link nodded. According to the mask salesman's books and the prophet he found.
So do you think all of this is the work of Majora?
Link looked around, to the giant skeleton, to the fire above them, and to the graveyard where the undead marched. No, he said, remembering the Stall children, and Redead and Hyrule too. I think these skeletons are monstrous creatures rather than true undead. There's nothing left of who they were before.
Creatures?
Tettle asked.
How in the name of Din are skeletons going to reproduce?
I don't know, Link said. But I've never met a female Goron, and somehow they reproduce. I think their practices involve volcanoes, or something like that.
Gorons definitely have kids and their own rituals and stuff, but if you're about to tell me the Redeads get their freak on in the crypts, I'm suing you for emotional damages. Stall babies aren't real, and I'm sticking to that.
Link balked. Ah, that's disgusting! And what does it mean to sue someone for emotional damages? Tattle hesitated.
I'm actually not sure.
Well, whatever Majora can do is beyond these undead here in Ikana. The mask salesman and the prophet believe that Majora's Mask actually brings a whole person back, not just their bodies. These Redead and Stall children have no humanity left in them. Whoever they were before is gone forever. Tattle's expression darkened.
Do you honestly think something so dark and evil, like Majora's Mask, is capable of bringing back someone with their humanity intact?
Link was surprised when her question sent a pang through his chest. Writing off Majora's powers forever seemed so final. Surely its necromancy could do some good in the world. But that's just the mask salesman talking, right? He thought. Or have I always secretly hoped to use it? He remembered her golden hair and her blue eyes, the touch of her skin.
You're right about one thing, Link,
Tattle said.
If Majora brought someone back to life, it would be nothing like the undead in Ikana, but I don't think that's a good thing. Once someone dies, they're gone for good. Death is the end. Forever.
Then the mask salesman died for nothing. Link thought, but he kept that to himself. The Dark Sorcerer had never been a stupid man. If he believed Majora was capable of true resurrection, there was a high chance that was true. But there was no use arguing about that now.
So,
Tattle said,
do you really want to wake this giant skeleton up?
We're stuck here until dawn anyways, aren't we? Link said. The Stall children won't leave until the sun comes up. Tattle rolled her eyes.
And our only way to pass the time is to wake more monsters to attack us?
He might be friendly.
Link,
Tattle said, flying up to the writing again.
Ye who awaken me, battle me, is the most direct and straightforward threat I've ever read.
Link approached the massive skeleton anyways, resting his palm on the withered, dry bone of its skull. It didn't stir. Battle makes me think it's honorable, like it's a guardian or something.
Right, so being manly and cryptic about why you're trying to kill each other makes it better?
Do you need a nap or something? Tattle scoffed.
Awaken the din-forsaken thing then, but don't expect me to dramatically shout your name when you inevitably almost die.
The word awaken made Link recall one particular song on his ocarina, the Sonata. He'd used it to rise Woodfall Temple from the depths of the swamp, and the monkey's words were distant but memorable. Link pulled the Ocarina of Time from his belt. Soon the slightly blackened mouthpiece was between his lips, and his breath flowed through the hollow clay. It took him a few tries to get the notes exactly right, but he was quick to once again relay the ancient Deku melody. At first, Tattle seemed to be his only audience member. Then, the dark sockets of his other listener came alive. The skeleton's eyes were orange flames, and the beast sprung to its feet in a surprisingly quick, fluid movement. The bridge above its head shattered. Link spun backward, running as the stone walkway exploded. The hole in its center had been widened while debris rained into the dirt around him. The chunks of rock missed Link, and the full might of the creature now stood before him. Link hardly came up to his knees. The hero instinctively reached for his sword, but the stall child turned away. It lumbered down the passageway, quaking the ground with each of its massive footsteps. Link couldn't help but smile as Tattle flew to join him. "Did that go exactly as you thought it would?" Link asked.
No,
Tattle said.
surprisingly, but you better chase after it if you're hoping for treasure.
Link agreed, giving chase and passing beneath a stone archway. The pathway was bordered by tall, mountainous walls of rock and eventually snaked up and around to lead to the arch. Link hardly took 5 steps when a wall of fire rose from the dirt. He skidded to a stop just before the tip of his nose was roasted off. The red, yellow, and orange heat went from rock wall to wall. From metal grates! There they were, shooting out flames. The fire made it impossible for him to pass, and through the shimmering orange he saw the skeleton thundering onward. The flames were not the only booby trap, however. 2 stall children sprung from the ground, as small and bright-eyed as the ones on the other side of the gate. Link slid steel free from his scabbard as the stall children pulled themselves from the dirt. His golden blade rang as it came down atop the first monster before it exited the ground, separating skull from shoulders. He spun around, shield now in hand, to block the strike from the second. The monster's claws scraped at its painted surface, and then Link's shining blade came next, parting brittle bone as those orange eyes went dull. By then, the fire vanished, leaving behind the young knight's cool, dark sky. Link turned to his main adversary. The giant skeleton had made it halfway up and around the slope toward the broken bridge. Link sheathed the golden blade and removed his dark gray bow. The blue gem glowed, conjuring a chunk of ice at his arrow's tip. He narrowed his eyes as he aimed and loosed. The arrow trailed snowflakes behind as it lodged itself into the giant's shoulder blade. Ice spread quickly over bone, forcing one of its arms down to its side and making it useless. It roared at its newfound handicap, but continued running regardless. Link drew another arrow, this time causing the red gem to glow. All the while, he quickened his pace, aiming and firing a projectile laced with fire. Soon, its other shoulder had been shot too, and this time, the giant skeleton stopped to remove the arrow before the fire spread. Its large, sparkling eyes angrily turned back to the boy. "Looks like I've got your attention." Link prepared his sword again, backing away to steady his feet as the Goliath approached. Its awkward, heavy gait was far more terrifying now that it walked toward him. Link would avoid its heavy slashes and cut at its feet, hopefully knocking it down before it could land a blow. Instead, 2 things surprised Link. The grate behind him breathed fire again, cutting off his backward stride. And then, the giant skeleton cackled before launching itself skyward. Link's mouth shot open, in total shock at its sudden aerial climb. Soon, its shadow fell over him. Link's immediate choices were death by burning or crushing, but he had another alternative in mind. The Goron mask made his Kokiri clothing and gilded sword vanish, and then he was curled into a ball and rolling away. The giant skeleton slammed into the dirt ground without harming anyone. As Link barreled into the rock wall and bounced off to aim for the giant, he crashed to its feet, and the skeleton screamed. The wall of fire faded again, just as Link rolled over the scorched metal grate. He arced around to be ahead of the creature, returning to his feet and becoming a boy again. He drew his sword and egged the skeleton toward him. Now, their destination, the lip of the broken bridge, was behind him, and Link was closer. The beast met the boy's eyes with fury as it gave chase again. As he considered how few arrows he had left, Link decided to use a weapon he'd long since retired. He applied his Deku mask, and his familiar wood-textured body returned to him. Of all the forms, I'll always feel most comfortable in this one. The Skull Kid had made sure of that. His green, swampy bubbles soon popped all over the giant. It screeched even more, attempting to power through and keep charging relentlessly. It found the task increasingly difficult, as the green gunk clung to its bones and weighed them down. The giant still tried to press on, even after Deku Scrub fluids coated it in a fine web from head to toe. Link removed the Deku Scrub mask and sheathed his sword, shield, and mask. The next weapon he drew was the hookshot. The powerful, sharp end hit the giant's brittle bone and cracked it. Once, twice, 3 times. His hook hacked away at the monster, one button press at a time. The giant skeleton, burdened by its frozen shoulder, web of goop and shattered bones, soon found itself stumbling instead of charging. Link kept backing away, lowering his hookshot when the giant monster finally tumbled over. The beast was once again on its stomach, looking up with a broken jaw and dirt-filled eyes. Anger had been replaced with terror. Link drew his weapon, holding the golden sword to strike between its eyes.
Wait!
The voice startled Link. He flinched, stopping short of killing it. He knew hesitation like that could have cost him his life, but the giant remained submissive.
You're letting it live?
Tattle asked, returning to his side.
It is my loss.
The skeleton continued, barely able to move its jaw despite the clear voice and words.
Sheathe your weapon.
Link found its voice rather human-like. It was deep, booming, and masculine. He imagined this man used to wield a silver tongue. Assuming it hasn't always been a skeleton.
Link, are you seriously going to believe him?
The fairy said as Link slid his sword away.
He just tried to kill you!
Link paused, taken aback by the new glow of his eyes, one that acknowledged another warrior. Yes, he said. I do believe him. The fairy shook her head.
Oh my god. Is this how you're going to spend your retirement too? Waiting around as a pile of bones to teach new warriors life-threatening lessons?
Before Link could answer, the giant shifted in the dirt. It rose to its knees slowly, suddenly burdened by its age, if not Link's recent damage. The hero backed away, watching as its full might once again towered alongside the rocky canyon walls.
Allow us to speak face to face,
the skeleton said, turning to look at the broken archway. Currently, its booming voice spoke from several feet above him, and Link realized it wanted them to be at the same height, so he walked along the pathway the giant had been running up, while the skeleton returned to where he'd been slumbering. Link and Tattle stopped at the edge of the broken bridge. Eventually, the giant skeleton filled the chasm eye to eye with Link now that the boy was on a ledge. Across the chasm, the ring of fire continued hiding a dark shape. The curious, glowing eye sockets of the undead giant beheld the young boy, and its body moved as if alive, like it had lungs to fill and a heart to care of. Old habits. Ones that were no longer needed, clearly. Who are you? Link asked.
I commanded the army of Ikana Kingdom atop the hill,
the skeleton said.
I am called Skull Kita.
It was an honor to face you in battle, Skull Kita, Link said. Skull Kita's teeth chattered, which Link equated to a smile.
Since being shamed by loss in a battle within my kingdom, I have waited here for one to come and awaken my soul.
A battle? For Ikana? Skull Kita nodded. Who are you fighting? The skeleton's orange eyes flickered thoughtfully.
The Garrow and the Crone they follow.
The Garrow? Link asked.
Enemies of the royal family of Ikana. They defied Egostu Ikana, the true ruler of Ikana and Termina. These lands are his by divine right. The Crone and the Garrow sought to defy him.
Did they win? The giant's eyes darkened.
The Crone cursed me and my men to lose our flesh and scatter us. I retreated here and brought those most trusted with me, but...
He stopped again, his head turning to the graveyard.
Some have turned against me. It appears they no longer wish to obey their captain since I no longer have my soul. It was stolen by the wicked Crone.
Who is the crone?
Beldam.
Captain Kita said.
She is wicked and destroyed our good king's cause. Now all that is left of the Ikana royal family is a wasteland. She stole my soul and forbade me from ever possessing it again, though she did grant me the ability to entrust it to another.
Skull Kita turned away from the ring of fire to face the boy again.
A trick of hers, no doubt, but I may have bested her.
Link gulped when realizing where this was going. This was not the first phantom in Termina to offer him their soul. He guessed what was hidden in the ring of fire.
Young swordsmen who have awakened and deftly defeated me,
The captain said.
I shall rely on your power to fulfill my request. I ask you to take my soul, which rests in the fiercely burning flame. Please, convey my words to my men who, even in death, remain loyal to the soul they once followed. Tell them the war has ended.
He paused, looking off and chattering his teeth again.
Then I shall be able to drift quietly into sleep.
For a moment, the ring of fire behind the captain enraptured Link. He thought he saw humanity in the flames, a past, a man who had once led soldiers to victory, but inevitably led them to their doom. A man who lingered as a skeleton filled with so much regret. Skull Kita stood tall and saluted the young hero.
Captain, sir! May I take leave, sir?
The giant skeleton stood eye to eye with him, chin up and his eyes fierce. I could tell him no, Link thought. I could force him to answer all of my questions until I know everything about Ikana. I could command him to ride beside me in battle. But then the honorable captain would be a slave, whose regret remained with him. Instead, Link clicked his heels together as Captain Kita had, bringing his hand to his head as well. Skull Kita, I release you of your burden. You have fought honorably, and from this day forth, I give you leave to rest. You may lay down your sword. Skull Kita's eyes shone brightly one last time.
Yes, sir!
Then the lights went out, and he fell into a pile of bones that could do no more than collect dust. Tattle stared for a long time at the corpse that had recently died. Again.
Skull Kita, captain of the royal family of Ikana, sworn to protect Egos to Ikana, rightful heir to Ikana Kingdom in the lands of Termina.
She believed all of it, except for that last bit. No one could claim dominion over all of Termina.
A king of shadows is no king at all,
she thought. The honorable captain was now dead, and hopefully his wayward men would soon follow him into a more permanent retirement. As soon as Captain Kita's eyes went dull, the ring of fire had vanished, revealing a brown, gold-trimmed treasure chest, similar to the one they'd found in the pirate's fortress.
Do all treasure chests look the same in Termina?
Tattle thought.
Hopefully it's not another hookshot.
Of course, if the captain had been telling the truth, the chest would contain his soul. She remembered what the ghosts from Romani Ranch had pulled from Ingo's chest 2 cycles ago. Link stood with her at the edge of the broken bridge, staring at the reward awaiting them.
So do you really think there's a soul in there?
Tattle asked. I hope so, Link said. If what he said was true, then we can probably release those stall children out there now. Tattle's eyes widened when she realized what that meant.
Or control them. We have that Garrow's mask too, which means we could have an army of ghosts and skeletons riding into Ikana with us.
Link shook his head. An army of cursed slaves is what it would be. We'd be no better than the masked salesman with the Re-Dead mask. Tattle frowned.
Okay, when you put it like that, you make me sound like a psychopath for suggesting it.
She paused.
But I guess if there's even a chance there's humanity left in them, you're right. It's not worth it.
Besides, the hood is called Garrow's mask. It belongs to the people Captain Kita and the skeletons were at war with.
Which means our army of skeletons and ghosts would be sworn mortal enemies,
Tattle said.
So, a bad idea for lots of reasons. What do you make of this whole Beldam person, leader of the Garrow? She sounds pretty evil to me, stripping a king's men of their flesh and souls.
She wondered if this mysterious king himself, Igosu Ukana, had met a similar fate. The first person I thought of was that old woman sitting on the cliff, Link said. The one with the stick who wants us to bring her the Garrow mask.
I bet you're right. What if she wants us to bring her the hood to renew the war?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
See, this is why you don't go on errands for creepy old women in robes and hoods, especially when they ask you to retrieve powerful masks.
She might not actually be Beldam, Link said. It's still just a theory. We'll go back to her, but I won't give her the hood until we know. Tattle nodded, while Link readied his hookshot and latched into the chest's wood to reel him over to the gap. Tattle joined him as he unlocked the dark chest and swung the top open. The fairy raised an eyebrow.
That's his soul?
Link removed a hat, very similar to the one Skull Kita once wore. It was a wooden replica of a skeleton, contorted atop fabric that could slide over someone's head. It's a hat, he said absently. The captain's hat.
And you think it'll let you control those stall children out there?
I guess we'll have to test it. He made his way back to the ground beneath the rooftop, placing his new skeleton hat over his green one. The eyes of the contorted skeleton fell over Link's eyes like glasses, though the rest of its wooden body remained pointed upward.
You look ridiculous,
Tattle said, as they made their way back to the gate.
2 hats?
I feel cool,
I bet you do,
the fairy said. Epona was frightened when she saw Link return with fake glowing eyes, but his voice reassured her. He turned to the stall children beyond the fence next, far away from the iron bars that acted as a shield.
Are you going to climb the fence?
Yep, he said. I bet there's a key somewhere in Dampe's shack, so we can unlock the gate and let Epona in, and maybe even spend the night there.
That's assuming the stall children don't tear us to shreds.
Well, I guess. We'll have to see if my hat is all it's cracked up to be. He gave her another smile before grabbing onto the bars and pulling himself to the top.
Raising giant skeletons from the dead and then plunging headfirst into their army,
she sighed.
One of these days he's going to get himself killed.
He landed on the grass, and despite her better judgment, Tattle joined him. The skeletons were as they'd been, circling graves, roaming aimlessly, or else sitting around the campfire.
They're acting like they're alive,
she thought.
A camp of soldiers.
She waited for them to turn their heads and discover the intruders, but none did. They remained occupied with whatever task entertained them, oblivious of the boy in the captain's hat with his fairy. When they passed the shack with a dead tree, she even saw 2 stall children swinging from its branches, kicking their slender legs childishly.
No way! Are they ignoring us because we're no longer digging up their graves? Or because of Link's hat?
Tattle was surprised when Link turned away from the shack. He walked to one of the tombstones they hadn't dug up. 3 stall children surrounded it.
Link?
Tattle whispered, flying up beside him.
What are you doing? Let's just get the key, unlock the gate, and get out of here.
I want to test out this mask, he said. And there's one more thing I still want to do here. She barely managed to hold her tongue.
Maybe just once don't go with your gut, Link,
she thought bitterly.
It would save my gut the stomachache.
A stall child rounding the tombstone stopped when it saw Link's wooden orange eyes. Huh? Surprisingly, its voice was just as human-like as Skull Kita's, though it was less commanding. It leapt with realization, standing tall and saluting. The monster pointed its chin to the sky.
Oh, Captain, sir! Excuse me, sir!
The boy smiled from beneath the hat, bringing his chest up as he pretended to be an officer. The other 2 skeletons noticed the conversation and were quick to come to attention too.
I could get used to this,
the fairy thought.
Is the royal family's treasure still well protected?
Link said, doing his best to impersonate the booming, deep voice of Captain Kita. Tattle realized they hadn't confirmed whether the Garrow's hood or Captain's hat was actually the royal treasure. It could still be something else.
Yes, sir,
the soldier answered.
It's right here beneath this grave.
Link's real eyes brightened beneath the false ones.
Of course,
Tattle thought.
The treasure is in the one grave he and Dampe never got to.
That's good to hear,
Link said. The stall children remained standing tall in salute, jaws only slightly quivering.
Where does their voices even come from?
Tattle thought. Without vocal cords and a throat, it was hard to say.
We haven't seen you in some time, Captain Sir. As per your orders, sir, we've been guarding these graves closely.
Their attacks on Link, Dompe, and the Gorman brothers now made sense.
They probably always attack on the first night.
Tattle theorized, realizing that the Gorman brothers robbed one of the gravestones to attack Romani Ranch.
Except Dompe is the only one who ever pays the price.
She would feel bad for him, but the gravekeeper seemed to have been one bad decision away from doing the same thing himself. When Link didn't say anything, the closest stall child continued.
We have been expecting your next order, sir. What shall we do?
The boy didn't answer immediately, and neither did Tattle.
Go back underground? Rest in peace? Leave this world?
Those were the words she expected.
Open up the grave,
Link said instead.
What?
Tattle blurted.
Open it?
The stall child stammered.
Link!
Tattle exclaimed, but the boy ignored her.
Open it. Yes, sir.
Link, are you sure this is a good idea?
Tattle asked. If I had a rupee for every time you asked me that, I would be a millionaire, he said.
Everyone, follow me.
The stall children turned around to hack at the tombstone itself rather than the ground before it. Their claws were surprisingly effective, reducing the thick stone slab to rubble. When they pulled out the last chunk of rock and tossed it aside, they revealed a deep, dark hole leading underground. It was nowhere near casket-sized, and way more than 6 feet deep. The stall children then leapt into its darkness, leaving Link and Tattle to stare after them.
Tell me we're not going down there,
she said. It won't be my first time climbing into a grave.
How shocking,
she said, flying to the hole's mouth. She saw ancient, rusted metal ladder rungs jammed into the dirt wall leading down.
Looks incredibly safe.
Link paid her no mind, dropping down to begin his descent into the abyss. One rung at a time, he fell into the darkness, and Tattle lit his way as his boots reached downward. Night's light faded, as their window into the outside world became slanted and obscured by dirt. The climb was longer and colder than she'd expected.
This treasure of yours better be flippin' fantastic,
Tattle said. Soon, Link's boots hit a hard rock floor. It was still pitch black save for Tattle's light, so she floated ahead as Link followed. They could hear the faint drip of water, but otherwise, it was just cool air and empty space.
Or hard-packed dirt?
It was hard to tell. They reached an ancient, ornate doorway, its gaudy frame muted by darkness. They passed through into a large room as cold and dank as a cave. Link waited at the entrance as Tattle scanned for gaps or traps.
Maybe the second or third time he's been cautious in his life,
she thought. She called for him when she found an unlit torch. The boy drew an arrow to activate his bow's red gem and used the magical fire to light the wood. The expansive room was lined with pillars. Green, yellow, and red danced along the ceiling, floor, and walls, though the artwork, shrouded by shadow, was more terrifying than anything else. There was a chair on the far end, and a thick red curtain hung behind it. In the chair sat what must have been a corpse. It was still in a full suit of metal armor, but it lay askew. A massive war axe rested near its side. Clearly, the person had been large and terrifying.
He goes to Wakana?
Tattle said. I don't think so, Link whispered. Those stall children wouldn't let the captain dig up the king. He approached the dead, suited man slowly, but he stopped just short of touching him.
Good Tiku head.
Instead, he walked behind the chair and pulled at the red curtain. Heaps of dust fell from it, but it parted all the same.
Another tomb,
Tattle realized.
Built into the wall.
She watched from the other side of the chair as Link read the writing. However, something was moving in the dancing firelight, and it wasn't Link.
Link, look out!
The boy was too late. A metal hand grabbed him by his collar and tossed him over the chair. Link flew by Tattle and landed in the middle of the painted floor. He was still struggling to stand when the heavily armored dead man had reached him, mighty battle axe over his head. Link rolled away as the weapon's sharp edge glistened in the fire as it scraped the floor.
Halt!
Link said, jumping to his feet and drawing his sword.
This is your captain, Skull Kita. Stand down!
The knight came at him regardless, sporting his thick chainmail and pointed dark helm. He swung his great weapon again, and Link barely sidestepped it. The Juggernaut got a few more swings in that all missed, and Link calculated his next move, sliding under the massive weapon and into the beast's armor. The knight's immediate instinct was to grab Link's entire chest in an iron grasp, but not before Link slid his sword into the helmet's opening. He pushed, and the helm spun off, revealing a decayed head that was already half bone. One rotten green eye and one empty socket beheld the hero. Immediately, the knight released Link. The boy stumbled back, recovering quickly from the breath he'd lost. It seemed now they saw eye to eye, or at least eye to mask. Kita's treasure worked.
Captain,
The dead knight said absently.
you're free.
The boy said. The knight's green, dry half-lip curled into a smile. A final exhale left him, and the man and all his armor collapsed to the floor. The great axe fell from his hand. The battle was won. Link slid his sword away and sighed.
That was close,
She thought.
too many battles in one day.
Unexpectedly, a new voice drew their attention.
Are you the one who freed my soul?
Tattle and Link immediately looked up, but they couldn't find the source.
Who's there?
She said, realizing they were once again a bright spot in a dark room, thanks to her. The creature did not choose to hide for long. A ghost formed from thin air right before the tombstone.
A Poe.
Tattle realized. Its face was black as night. Its eyes glowed blue, and an elegant set of gray-green robes fell lightly over its compact body. It held a lantern, which swayed back and forth with a bright orb of magic within. The fairy recalled the ghosts at the ranch with lights for eyes, trying to rip orbs from others' chests.
Do all ghosts carry their souls outside of them?
Perhaps that was the definition of a ghost. In its other hand, the Poe held a small white baton. If it had any legs, its robes hid them. The ghost had a smile on its face and a blonde handlebar mustache beneath its nose. Link and Tattle left the body of its guard to approach the tombstone.
I'm guessing you're a friend.
Tattle said, already narrowing her eyes.
I serve the Akana royal family.
The Poe said.
I am the composer called Flat.
These things just always go ahead and start introducing themselves, don't they?
She thought. It's a pleasure to meet you, Flat, Link said, removing the captain's hat and putting it in his bag. Tattle realized the Garrows mask could likely control this being if needed.
Though, let's hope it stays friendly.
The songs connected to the royal family that remain here were all composed by my brother and I.
The Poe's smile faltered.
Oh, Sharp, my dear brother. He sold his soul to the devil and was the one who locked me in here.
The devil?
Tattle thought. That was a pretty serious accusation.
The crone? The imp? The demon? Something else?
They had far too many enemies and far too few allies.
You, who do not fear the dead,
Flat continued.
learn well the song that is inscribed behind me, and if you ever meet my brother, I'd like you to inform him.
The ghost trailed off. The Poe's eyes then flickered directly to Link's.
The 1,000 years of raindrops summoned by my songs are my tears. The thunder that strikes the earth is my anger. I have made my request.
Then, the solemn, mysterious apparition faded again. Tattle and Link stood alone before the tombstone where his body rested.
Wow.
Tattle said.
Imagine crying for 1,000 years over your brother.
Link grimaced, likely not wanting to broach the subject of Tail just then. Who do you think the devil is?
The crone. It has to be the crone.
Tattle said.
Or the skull kid. I bet we'll have to deal with them both either way.
Link nodded, turning away from the tombstone without reading the notes on it.
Hey!
Tattle called out.
Are you really passing up the opportunity to learn a new song?
A new song? Link said with a sarcastic grin. Tattle sighed.
Don't play stupid.
I'm not, he said. I just don't need to look at the notes.
Why?
Because I already know them.